In September of 1999, Gladys Ricart was in her Manhattan home with her family and friends, finishing up getting ready for the day she had dreamed of for years. She was finally getting married to a man that truly made her happy and loved her for being her, Mr. James Preston Jr. Now, Gladys had just got out of a 7-year-long abusive and controlling relationship just 2 months ago with a very prominent Dominican businessman named Agustin Garcia, but with it ending the way it did and finding out that she was getting married so soon, Augustine had become very bitter and started stalking her. Throughout the day, as groomsmen waited outside while the bridesmaids were inside taking pictures and videos, several people had saw Augustine drive by the house at least 3 times, but after seeing how overwhelmed Gladys was and of course not wanting to ruin her big day, they all agreed not to tell her. Now, as time got closer for them to leave the house to head to the church where her fiance was waiting on her, Augustine decided to stop by and do something that no one would have ever expected him to do. What it do, baby? Welcome and welcome back to the #1 true crime / tragic story channel on YouTube, The Mysterious Black Bat. Like I do on every video, let me thank every single one of you for giving this channel a chance to entertain you. We are finally getting closer to that 10K, so make sure y'all go back and watch those previous videos so you can have a chance to win something. Now, y'all already know what it takes for you to be successful on here, so go ahead and do your boy a favor and hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on all them doggone notifications so you don't miss out on any of these videos. Once y'all done that, hold on. Have y'all done that yet? Go on and tap it. All right, thank you. All right, my people, let's get back to this video. Gladys Ricart was a 30-year-old single parent who came to the United States from the Dominican Republic in search of what everyone is looking for, the American dream, but life in the States wasn't all what it seemed to be. For a while, Gladys had to live off government assistance to help support her and her child, then she had to clean homes and offices for extra cash. But after a while of hard work and dedication, things started to take off for her once she enrolled in college and landed a job with CTN Tours travel agency. She put a lot of time and energy into studying, and after a while she received an accounting degree and also promoted to an account payables manager position. In 1992, as she was on the subway headed to work, she randomly came in contact with a charming businessman named Agustin Garcia. He saw her sitting there alone and decided to strike a conversation with her just to pass the time. Once he made it to a stop and was about to get off the bus, he handed her a card and asked her to give him a call whenever she had a chance. Now, at this time, Gladys didn't know exactly who Augustine was, but she was very flattered by his charm and wit. Soon after that first encounter, Gladys learned that Augustine was a little more than just a regular old guy, and they also had a few things in common. Augustine was recently divorced and was raising 2 children of his own. He also was an immigrant that came to the US with nothing in the 70s, but after a while of making the right connection, he managed to become a highly successful businessman, president of a local chambers and commerce, and a reinforcing Dominican political power who did everything he could to represent and alleviate poverty amongst the inner city, most troubled groups of immigrants. Now, although the 2 of them ran in 2 completely different circles, the both of them had fell deeply in love with each other, and within weeks, Gladys and Augustine had began dating. For years, their relationship appeared to flourish. He helped her purchase her own house, took her to all these high-profile events and political fundraisers, and even took her on cruises to the Bahamas, but in the midst of all this, Gladys was still not happy. Over time, Augustine had allegedly become violent and controlling, but regardless of that, Gladys was still deeply in love with him and wanted to be more than just a girlfriend. But he appeared reluctant to make a permanent commitment. They had been together for almost 7 years by this time, and whenever they were around their associates, he would always refer to her as his wife, but yet he never mentioned the word marriage. Now, apparently, some people knew the reason why he didn't want to marry her was because he had several other women on the side. And of course, this caused a lot of heartache and distress to Gladys, but she was always going to give him the benefit of a doubt since she had never caught him in the act, but this wasn't for long. One night, Augustine claimed that he had to work late to catch up on a few things and told Gladys not to wait up on him. But of course, with all the suspicions and rumors she had heard already, it was time to check it out for herself. So that night, Gladys found a way to get up to that office and received all the confirmation she needed. As she walked into his office, she saw Augustine clenched up with another woman, and to make matters worse, it was one of Gladys' best friends. Now, you know, Augustine cried and pleaded that it wasn't what it looked like, but that was the last straw for Gladys. After waiting 7 years to be his wife and dealing with abuse, and on top of that, he was cheating, she didn't want anything else to do with him. Although Gladys knew that this was going on, it sent her into a very low and depressed stage in her life because she really cared about him and all she really wanted was to be made an honest woman. Now, weeks had went by and Gladys was finally making progress in forgetting about Augustine. And one day as she was on her way to buy herself some lunch close to where she worked, she ran into James Preston, a 36-year-old accountant who worked across the street from her. After the two had a brief but meaningful conversation, they decided they wanted to go on another lunch outing later that week. Soon after that next date, Gladys could tell that this was the one for her. She instantly fell head over heels for James and knew that this was the man she was going to marry. The two of them went steady, seeing each other every other day, and within just 2 months of dating, James popped the question and proposed to Gladys. This was exactly what she had been waiting on her whole life. A man that genuinely made her happy and loved her for her. But after Augustine found out that she was getting married so soon after their breakup, made him livid. He started calling all day and night while she was at work and at home, begging for another chance, and when she wouldn't give in, he showed up to her house and tried to break in. But after none of that seemed to change Gladys' heart, he became more vengeful and creative. One of Gladys' colleagues said that their company had to intervene when Augustine sent a letter to her son's college claiming that she had lied about financial aid for him. Then on another occasion, while her soon-to-be husband was at her house, he popped up again and started banging on the doors and windows. So they had to call the police just to get him to leave. Now, although Gladys had every right to get a restraining order and press charges on him, she declined to do so because she felt like she owed him. Now, you would think that after his involvement with the police, he would have just let everything go, but that wasn't the case. Just a few weeks before Gladys was supposed to get married, he came to her house yet again and left a Bible in front of the doorstep, a trail of white roses on her lawn, which symbolized death in the Dominican community. Despite all this, Gladys was determined to move on with her life, but she did warn her friends and family that if she was to ever mysteriously go missing, just know it was Augustine. Now, on September 26, 1999, the day was finally here. Everyone had gathered over her house in Manhattan to finish up getting dressed and ready for the wedding that was supposed to start later on that day. Gladys was extremely excited and overwhelmed about her dream that has come true, so she didn't have time to worry about Augustine. She wanted to make sure everything was perfect for her husband. But in the midst of all this, the groomsmen that were outside saw him driving up and down the street several times, camping out her place. But they agreed to keep it between themselves so they wouldn't upset the bride. Around 4 p.m., Gladys was finishing up the last few pictures with her families and friends before she met up with her soon-to-be husband, who was waiting at her at a Queen's church. Then all of a sudden, Augustine had strode up to the front door wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase, claiming that the only reason he was there was to give her his best wishes. Not thinking much about it, the relatives let him in, but as soon as he entered, he began pushing aside anyone that stood in his way until he came across the bride-to-be standing in the living room. Before she could even recognize who the person was, Augustine had reached into the briefcase, pulled out a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver, and let off a multitude of gunshots directly at Gladys. The gunfire sent the house full of guests scrambling for cover, but her brother, Ricart, immediately rushed over and grabbed Augustine and tried his best to get the gun away from him. Once the police arrived, Augustine and the brother were still tussling over the gun as he was trying to reload it, but the police immediately reacted and placed him under arrest. By the time the paramedics arrived, Gladys was lying there in a pool of her own blood wearing that pearly white dress and was pronounced dead at the scene. Out of the 5 shots that Augustine let off, 3 had made contact with Gladys. She had been shot once in the arm, once in the back, and once in the head. This tragic event drew national attention, especially as Augustine pled not guilty and claimed that her wedding ceremony shocked him into temporary insanity. Once the trial started, Augustine's lawyer tried to push for manslaughter instead of first-degree murder because he claimed that Augustine and Gladys were still romantically involved, and as a matter of fact, he stated that they had just had intercourse 3 days before the shooting occurred. Now, throughout the trial, some of the people that knew him in person described him as a man that was controlling, stubborn, and reluctant to share the spotlight. One person even stated that when he shook your hand, he tried to squeeze it as hard as he could to let you know that he was powerful, dominant, and important, but basically just a man with low self-esteem. Now, on the other hand, he had several friends and colleagues that spoke very highly of him, saying that he was a very well-mannered and selfless person and they couldn't comprehend this murderous act. Even his ex-wife said that he was never abusive and she had never had a bad experience with him. Her only complaint was he never had time for them. But despite all those claims, after the jury put on and watched that horrific and gruesome 10-minute long video that was captured by one of her guests, the Supreme Court jury rejected the crime of passion defense and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 30 years before parole. As of today, Agustin Garcia is being held in the East Jersey State Prison in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and will be eligible for parole in 2029. And that will bring yet another disturbing video to an end, my wonderful people. This man turned into a freaking lunatic after he was the one that got caught cheating and didn't marry her within 7 years. Some people just can't take losing at all. I'm gonna keep this ending short and sweet, but make sure y'all let me know down in the comments what you think about this story. I hope you all enjoyed the way I tell these stories, and if you did, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and turn on all those notifications for your boy. All right, always remember to live and let live, and until next time, stay mysterious, my friends.